Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Late night show, suit and tie edition, baby. I was just on the call for a Washington State University basketball game. We're gonna get through everything, all the games. Might be a little bit of a shorter one tonight. We're gonna get through everything. Don't you guys worry. Election day tomorrow. Hope everybody has a great day. Let's start with Lions Packers though, man. Lions Packers, good game, and I got this one wrong. I'll tell you what. I still think the Packers can beat Detroit. Last year we saw them crush Detroit on Thanksgiving, and remember, Detroit crushed them the first time, and then the Packers crushed them the second time. So I thought the same would happen this year. I said I think they'll split. I think both are very good, both very talented, but I liked Detroit a little bit more. But I thought they'd split, but I thought Green Bay would win in Lambeau and Detroit would win in Detroit. And I guess now I have to change my mind because I still think the Packers can win, but now I guess I have to take the Packers to win on Thanksgiving, just like they did last year in a Thanksgiving rematch in Detroit. The Lions were very impressive. I mean, in the elements, and I get Jordan Love. I think he's struggling with some injuries. He didn't look amazing. Um, Packers defense played pretty well, all things considered. But the big story is Jared Goff. The narrative with him has always been he's great in a dome. He's great when everything's going well. He's great when with a lead. We saw him play. Yeah, he did have a lead for the whole game. I mean, first quarter they were down 3-0. But it was a rainstorm in Lambeau. He was battling the elements, and I thought that was going to be a real contributing factor to why the Packers would win in Lambeau. And instead it was all Lions. Final score was 24-14. Uh it felt it didn't even feel that close though, to be honest. The Packers, they were down 24-8 or 24-6, excuse me. And then Green Bay got a little touchdown in the fourth quarter, 2-point conversion sort of a deal, but it didn't even feel that close. The Lions dominated. They run the ball well. I mean, Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, that's got to be the best running back duo that the NFL has seen in quite some time, right? They're so good together. They're so good together. It's wild, you know. Um, and Goff just doesn't throw incompletions. He was, again, I think he threw like 4 incompletions, like 17 for 21, something like that. It's amazing how accurate he is, even in the rain, even in the elements. Rain, wind, doesn't matter. Jared Goff's gonna ball out. He is turning into an MVP candidate. He really is. You see the 4th and 1, just give it to Gibbs, let him do the work. Just an amazing play call. The line, I mean, Ben Johnson is amazing. The Lions just have everything rolling right now. Ben Johnson playing well as an offensive coordinator. Goff, Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Gibbs, Montgomery. The line, the O-line is great. The D-line. I mean, they didn't have Aiden Hutchinson. They were missing Jamison Williams. It was flawless. What they did to the Packers, it was flawless. A flawless win for the Detroit Lions. Really impressive. Really, really impressive stuff. And yeah, Green Bay, to their credit, they fought back. They had a decent fourth quarter, but I don't know. Maybe I should pick the Lions to win again on Thanksgiving. The way they're playing, they look like the best team in the NFC, that's for sure. And I think they were my preseason Super Bowl pick. I've picked them to lose the Super Bowl. I still think they're going to lose the Super Bowl. They look like they can definitely lose the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that might be the only team that can beat them. I honestly, like, the Chiefs might be the only team that's beating the Lions right now. The way they're playing, man. Detroit, this is their league right now. This is their NFC. So the Cowboys lost. It's funny, I said last week I'm done talking about the Cowboys when they lose because it doesn't feel notable anymore because they're just a bad team. I mean, they really are. The Cowboys are just not a good team at this point. Their wins against a bad Cleveland Browns team, They beat the Steelers, but that was with Fields. And they beat, who was the other one? Was it Carolina? I don't even remember. I think it was Carolina. But they're not a good team. And lost to the Saints, who stink. Lost to the Ravens, Niners. I mean, those are it's fine. Like, there's no shame in losing to the Ravens and the Niners and the Falcons. Like, Falcons are a good team. Like, there's no shame in that. But Dallas just isn't very good. And I think the league has to figure that out and realize that. And learn that. They lost to Detroit. There's no shame in losing to Detroit. Like, the only team that they've lost to that they really should have beaten was the Saints. And if they win that game, they're 4-4. They still have a pretty good chance. They beat the Giants. They're just like they're not the worst team in the league, but they're not a good team. They're doing the fake punt thing and almost throwing an interception, and man, I don't love it. I really don't love it. They're trying to be aggressive. I get it. You're trying to be aggressive, but at some point you just got to punt the ball away. Kirk Cousins looking great, but the reason we're talking about the Cowboys and even this early in the show is because Dak Prescott got hurt. Honestly, if Dak didn't get hurt, I don't know if I would have even talked about this game, because it really does feel like an unnecessary game to talk about. You know what I mean? But because he got hurt, we're going to talk about it. So he's out for multiple weeks, maybe IR. If I was them, I would start Trey Lance. And that's what the ESPN pundits are saying too this morning. Start Trey Lance. Because the bottom line is you've got nothing to lose at this point. Because if Trey Lance plays awfully, their next games, they've got the Commanders, the Eagles, and who's the other one? It's another tough one. They have 3 tough games coming up. Commanders, Eagles, is it Tampa? It might be Tampa. Let me look really quick. Dallas has the Commanders, Eagles, and Texans. So we expect them to lose all 3 of those games, right? With or without Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. Who has a higher ceiling, Trey Lance or Cooper Rush? Well, you'd think it would be Trey Lance. He was picked 3rd overall. So on the if there is any chance the Cowboys pull off an upset, I think it would be with Lance and not with Cooper Rush, who, yeah, he went 4-1, but when he went 4-1, it was against bad teams and it was with a much better defense, right? That year the Cowboys had the best defense in the league. This year they do not have that. So I would start Trey Lance, not Cooper Rush. Also, if he sucks and you lose those games, then you'd be 3-8. At that point, do you throw the whole season away? Just give Dak the rest of the year to heal up? You've already paid him, so you can't get rid of him. Give him the time to heal. And then at that point, it's like you get a good draft pick somebody good in the draft next year, and you move on with this season. But they're out. They're out of the playoffs. Yeah, they're out of the playoff mix. Because they're behind. How much are they behind? They're 3 games back in their division. And they're also 3 games back of the wild card, right? Because the Eagles are 6-2 in a wild card. And the Vikings are 6-2, and they're a wild card. And the other wild card would be 6-3, would be Green Bay. And Green Bay, and yeah, so they're 2.5 back of Green Bay. They're 3 back of the Eagles in their division, 3 back of the Commanders in their division. They're not making the playoffs. It's over for Dallas. Shout out to the Falcons for looking good, and shout out to Kirk Cousins. 3 more touchdowns. He's been on fire, and the Falcons are going to win that division. They're 6-3. Bucks are going to lose to the Chiefs, so they're going to have 2 games and the tiebreaker over the Bucks. This week just about wraps up the NFC South, to be honest. The Falcons pretty much won the NFC South this week. Really, they won it last week when they beat the Bucks, but this week really kind of wraps that thing up. So congrats to the Falcons. How about that Sunday night game? Colts Vikings. We talked all week about it. Joe Flacco starting for the Colts. A lot of controversy. Colts fans are mad. Colts fans are pissed, which I get it. They think Richardson's the future. They don't really care about the playoffs this year. But I also get the idea that, look, Flacco's better. And even after this game, I think Flacco is the better quarterback. Now, that depends on wins. Because at some point, you have to say, look, I mean, look at that. Was that Flacco's fault? That Jonathan Taylor botched a handoff? Is that Flacco's fault for that? I don't think so. Flacco did throw a pick. He didn't lead the team to any touchdowns, but they missed a field goal. They got a couple more field goals. They moved the ball pretty well. And look, the Vikings have a really good defense. Brian Flores has been dialing it up over there. So the idea that Richardson was going to do anything better than what Flacco did, I mean, the Vikings sacked Flacco 7 times. They lead the league in sacks. Is that Flacco's fault? The Colts fans are trying to claim that Richardson would have ran more and not been sacked. I don't necessarily believe that to be true. He's been sacked a lot this season too. And who's to say they don't just blitz him the same way, or they come in with a totally different game plan? Vikings have a great defense. Like, of course Flacco and the Colts were never going to win that game. Now the question, of course, is no matter how much better Flacco is, and I do believe he's better, how long do you give him before you pivot back to Richardson? Because if they lose to the Bills next week, they're 4-6. After they play the Bills, they have the Jets, then the Lions, and the Patriots. So you're like, well, they lose to the Bills, beat the Jets, they can be, what would they be then? They'd be, I mean, look, this is a winnable schedule. If they lose to the Bills, they're 4-6. Beat the Jets 5-6. Lose to the Lions 5-7. They could beat New England to get to 6-7. Denver could be tough. Let's say you lose that game 6-8. Then their last 3 though are the Titans, Giants, and Jags. So I think if you can just be 6-8 going into those last 3, you give yourself a chance, because then you can run the table against the Titans, who stink, the Giants, who stink, the Jaguars, who stink. And if you run the table in your last 3 games, you make the playoffs, most likely, because I think 9-8 gets the Colts into the playoffs. Maybe not. I guess, honestly, the Broncos game probably is going to be what decides it. So, honestly, the question is, do you want to go all in on making the playoffs? If you do, Flacco's probably the answer. But I would say if you lose to the Jets, let's say you lose to Buffalo, you're 4-6. If you lose to the Jets and fall to 4-7, you have to go back to Richardson at that point. But I think Richardson was benched because he lost the locker room when he tapped out of that game against the Texans. I really do. Vikings side of it, really quick. I mean, Sam Darnold had a great game. Another good game. 3 touchdowns. He did turn the ball over twice. No, 3 times. Fumbled once and threw 2 picks. So a little bit of a roller coaster from Sam Darnold. But it was kind of Josh Allen-esque. And he won. He scored. Moved the ball well, efficiently. Nice little trick play there from Justin Jefferson. I'm loving the trick plays this year in the NFL, by the way. And yeah, things worked out for him. Good for Sam. Good for Sam Darnold. Got the Vikings 6-2. They're in the playoff picture. And their next 3 games, they have a 3-game road trip, which might be tough. But the guys that they're playing against, who is it? It is the Bears, the Jaguars, and the Titans. They can easily win 2 of 3, if not all 3 of those. If they win 2 of 3, they'd be 8-3. If they lose all of them, they'd be 9-2. I like how Minnesota's set up this year, and they already have the win over Green Bay too. They're a good football team. They were very close. Keep in mind, they were much closer to beating Detroit than the Packers were. How about the Cardinals? The Cardinals, I'm gonna make this admission right now. I wish I would have gone all in on the Cardinals. I said this about the Commanders earlier in the year because when I did my preseason picks, I said I think the Commanders will be good, but not yet take the step to the playoffs. And the Commanders proved me wrong, and I wish I would have been bold enough to predict that. Similarly, I wish I would have been bold enough to predict the Cardinals because I thought about it. But I turned out and said, no, I'm not going to be bold like that. I'm going to pick the Rams to win the division. I'm going to pick the Niners to get a wild card. And I'm going to pick the Cardinals to finish in third. I should have seen this coming. Kyler is good. Look, Kyler Murray's good. Jonathan Gannon has got that defense playing well. And Kyler Murray's balling out. And the Bears, it went into a tough conditions. By the way, since when was it hailing in Arizona? I know it's November, winter weather, but we do not normally see hail in Arizona. It's like the whole climate change thing, right? Global warming. It's not global warming. If it was global warming, it'd be 80 degrees, which it was in New York, by the way. Halloween, New York City, 80 degrees. But it's climate change, right? That's why we can't call it global warming, because in Arizona, November 4th, it is hailing in Arizona. Doesn't matter for the Cardinals. They win pretty handily, 29-9 over Chicago. The Bears don't score in the second half. Caleb Williams, his second straight game without a touchdown. Bears fans are overreacting, as they often do. I think it's funny how teams will lose one game and their fan base just completely overreacts. It's like the Colts fans. The overreaction after one game is that they should fire Shane Steichen. Like, come on. And similarly, Bears fans have decided that some of them, well, the Justin Fields truthers were out in full force yesterday, trying to say that the Bears should have kept Fields and not drafted Caleb, which is blatantly stupid. The Bears are a much better team with Caleb already. Justin Fields won 10 games there in 3 years. Caleb's going to win probably 8 or 9 in his first year there. So if you actually think Justin Fields was better than Caleb, you're dumb. I'm sorry, you are. You're wrong. Just there's no facts to back that up. Nothing. Caleb's more talented, better thrower, better runner. Well, maybe not better runner. Better in the pocket, better with a lead, better when trailing, better in the elements, better leader, more coachable, better arm strength, better accuracy, better playmaking ability. He's better in every facet except for maybe with his legs. So then the other section of Bears fans is out there, the Jaden Daniels truthers are saying, well, we made a mistake. We should have drafted Jaden number 1 instead of Caleb. And not only should we draft Jaden instead of Caleb, the entire coaching staff needs to be fired for not bringing Jaden in for an interview, which I agree. They probably should have looked at Jaden a little bit more, but there was always an argument for Caleb to be number 1. I said I thought Jaden should be the number 1 overall pick. I said I thought Jaden was better, but I still think that it's too early to blatantly be like, yep, we made a mistake. Like, it's game 8, and you're 4-4, and a little bit ago you were 4-2. And you're still probably going to win 8 or 9 games, and it's year 1. And then the Eberflus truthers were out there, the Colin Cowherds of the world, are out there claiming that you need an offensive coach, and you must fire Eberflus. And I do kind of see where they come from. I think you got to see how it goes with Eberflus. But I will say this. If the Bears implode, when I say implode, I mean if they win 6 games, like they were 4-2, if they implode and end up winning 6 games, that's when you fire Eberflus. But if they win 8-9 games, it's going to be tough to justify firing Matt Eberflus, even if you think, yeah, maybe we can do better. Maybe we can find an offensive guy, but you look at their schedule and you're like, I see wins on their schedule. Like I think they win 9 games right now is what I'm projecting. New England, they can win. I think they can split with Minnesota. I think they can split with Detroit, potentially, or Green Bay. Yeah, the division's going to be tough, but I feel like Green Bay is beatable. Minnesota's beatable. Maybe not Detroit. The Niners, they could beat the Niners. They could beat the Seahawks. The Niners aren't good this year. The Niners are 4-4, same record. Seattle's 4-5. They could beat Seattle on a Thursday night. Like, I see some wins on that schedule. I really do. Now, maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe they're going to get blown out by the Packers twice, blown out by the Vikings twice, blown out by the Lions twice. And maybe the Seahawks and 49ers get them, and they end up only winning one more game the rest of the way against New England. Maybe that happens. Personally, I think that they are better than that. I think they can beat the Packers or the Vikings and Seattle, but we'll see. But that is what's going to determine. I mean, I think Eberflus probably has to win 7 or 8 games to keep his job. And meanwhile, with the Cardinals, I'm going all in. I think they win that division. I think they win the West. I've had the Rams for the first 8 weeks of the season. From the preseason, I've been very consistent. I said the Rams are going to win the West. Even when the Rams were 1-4, and the Cardinals at that point were 2-2, and the Seahawks were 3-1, I said the Rams are going to find a way to come back and win the division. Now the Rams have won 3 straight, but so have the Cardinals, and the Cardinals dominated the Rams when they played. So I've got the Cardinals winning the West from here on out. That could totally change, and it probably will. When do they play the Rams again? Week 17. That Week 17 could be for the division. Week 18 definitely could be for the division. You see how I have it playing out, though? I'm going to show you. This is my projections for the NFC West. Cardinals 9-8, Rams 9-8. Cardinals get the tiebreaker, though. Niners and Seahawks both go 8-9. So very close. What that means is that probably every week I'm going to have a new winner of that division. And by the way, speaking of that division, Rams Seahawks. And also, by the way, speaking of overreactions, the overreaction from Seahawks fans is that they need to fire Mike Macdonald and John Schneider. Give me a break. You're 4-5. It's year 1 with a new head coach. You're doing fine. Seattle's gonna be fine. They beat the Falcons, who are good. They beat the Broncos, who are good. Yeah, like, you lost to the Lions, you lost to the Rams, you lost to the Niners. That's fine. You're allowed to lose those games. It's his first year as a head coach. Give Mike Macdonald time. You can't judge a coach after 9 games. You can't. Unless the coach has literally no control over the locker room, which I don't believe to be the case. But yeah, it was a good game, overtime game. Rams end up winning 26-20. I'm a Seahawks fan, obviously, so it hurts me. But I said I think the Seahawks would win that game. I keep picking home teams. Basically, my rule for division games, and I think I may need to reevaluate this. I keep saying, well, division teams will split home away, and it keeps working out that either they don't split home, either the better team wins both, or they split, but they split the opposite way, where both teams win on the road. Like I said, I think the Seahawks will win at home, Rams win it in LA. But I don't know, the Rams just won it in Seattle, so am I going to have to predict the Seahawks to win in LA now? I guess so. I don't know. Stafford looked good. 3 touchdowns for him. Geno Smith had a weird game. He threw 3 touchdowns, but also turned the ball over 3 times. 3 picks, 3 touchdowns for Geno. I mean, he's fine. He's having a decent season. I don't know how I feel about it. Seattle's points in the first half, they all came at the end of the first quarter, or end of the second quarter, right at the end. They got back-to-back touchdowns within like a 2-minute stretch. And if they had just made both extra points, they win the game. Because then at the very end of the game, down 20-13, Seattle scores a game-tying touchdown to tie the game 20-20. If Jason Myers just makes an extra point on the first touchdown that they scored of the game, Seattle wins 21-20. most likely. The Rams would have had 20 seconds to score a touchdown. But alas, Jason Myers missed the kick. Rams then Seattle made a very controversial call in overtime. The Seahawks went for it on 4th and 1 when they were well within field goal range. And the critique was that Seattle shouldn't have gone for it. They should have kicked the field goal, took the points, and trust the defense. The problem is the Rams scored a touchdown to win the game in overtime. So if you're thinking we think they're going to score a touchdown, the move is to go for it, right? Now I understand the critique that Mike McDonald needs to trust his defense, but he correctly didn't trust them. Now, is it perhaps a bad look for a defensive mastermind such as McDonald to not trust his defense? Sure. It's a bad look to admit that you don't trust your defense when you're meant to be a defensive mastermind, but he was right. Right? He made the right call to go for it. It was a terrible play call. They just basically just an outside run. I mean, and it was very obvious they were going to run the ball. So it was a really bad play call, but at least they went. I think they made the right call to go for it. I do. But either way, Rams now 4-4. Seahawks fall to 4-5, and the Rams with a tiebreaker. They're right back into it, which I said they would. They're right back into it. They've climbed right back into this division. All right, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens just demolishing Denver. I'm going to talk about it because Denver's a good team, and Baltimore dismantled them. Lamar. I'm starting to get frustrated, honestly, with the takes. Like, yeah, Josh Allen's had a great year, and Jared Goff has had a great year, and Mahomes and Burrow. There's been a lot of quarterbacks who've had great seasons. Lamar Jackson has to be your MVP. He has to be. The only quarterbacks with similar stats, there's 3. Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Allen. Those are the only quarterbacks who are statistically close. Guess what they all have in common? They all got crushed by Lamar. Not crushed. Jaden didn't get crushed. Denver did, Buffalo did, though. And Baker did. The score wasn't terrible, but they were down by like 4 scores at one point. So he has crushed his 3 statistically closest competitors. He has by far the best numbers. Lamar's your MVP right now. He is. He's been so good. Completion percentage, yards, passer rating, leads the league in passer rating, second in completion percentage, first in touchdowns, total touchdowns. I believe he's also like second or third in touchdown to turnover ratio. 6 and 3. What people are holding against him is the Raiders' loss and the Browns' loss. You have to understand, not all the losses are on him. He's the statistical best player in the league. And the Ravens are winning because of him, as they always do. And I get that he just won the MVP last year, but you gave it to Rodgers back-to-back years when he didn't deserve it. Rodgers didn't deserve to win the second MVP. That should have been Matthew Stafford, who won MVP. Matthew Stafford should have won MVP in 2021. I'll die on that hill. They gave it to Rodgers. He didn't even deserve it. So if you're going to give Rodgers back-to-back MVPs that he didn't deserve, you got to give it to Lamar, right? Lamar's been insane this year. He's been excellent. Absolute excellence from Lamar Jackson. It's been a beautiful thing to watch. It's been amazing. Lamar's been amazing. And I don't think there's any way you can deny that. He has been out of control, excellent, so good, so talented. He's always been talented, but he's so good. Man, kind of blows you away, honestly, just how good Lamar Jackson has been this year. I'm raving over it. And he beats a good Denver team. Denver's defense had been rolling until they play Lamar, and they just got cooked. They got cooked by a much better player than, and Bo Nix, to his credit, showing some fight early on, but that was Lamar Jackson's game. Well, how about the Titans beating the New England Patriots Um, yeah, how about that? Well, again, called it. I like when I call these things. Patriots, had they won, would they have been back? I don't know if that's the right word. But they sure would have been close. I mean, it would have been they would have been 3-6 with, again, not necessarily a difficult schedule. They could have, they could have made some, but instead, the Tennessee Titans, Mason Rudolph having a nice game. Mason Rudolph has actually been good for the Titans the past couple games. Obviously, he beat the Dolphins, now beating New England. Titans are now 2-6. By the way, there's not a single one-loss team in the league. How impressive is that? We're going to talk about the other one-loss team that won in a little bit here. But Will Levis, I think he's done for in Tennessee because Mason Rudolph is running that offense much more efficiently, and this is without DeAndre Hopkins, right? When Will Levis was in there, they had DeAndre. They gave Will Levis some nice weapons. They gave him Tony Pollard. They gave him DeAndre Hopkins. They gave him Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. I mean, they had some solid weapons, and Will Levis just couldn't get it going at all. Mason Rudolph is operating that offense. I think he needs to start there the rest of the season. Now, of course, there's always the argument of, well, you might as well just play Levis even though he's worse, get a better draft pick, and draft a new quarterback next year. But there's always the other argument, which is the players are not there to tank. The players are there to win football games. They want to win, and Mason Rudolph gives them the best chance to win. We're seeing it right now. So good for them. Good for the Titans and New England. To their credit, Drake May made an incredible. I want to find the throw that he made to send it to overtime. Look at this. Watch this play. He rolls back. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing. This is like a Russell Wilson play. This is such a Russell Wilson play. It's incredible. Look at this. He keeps the play alive, gets hit, throws, no look, touchdown. I mean that's impressive. That sent it to overtime, but the Titans ultimately win 20-17 in overtime. Shout out to Drake May though. He's looking good. 2 touchdowns, making his throws. And by the way, Drake May 85 rushing yards. So he's kind of a bit of a dual threat. I kind of like what I'm seeing out of Drake May. Obviously, he has not won a game that he has finished. He did technically get credit for the win against the Jets, but he didn't finish that game. Brissett did. But Drake May showing signs of talent. Maybe a little bit of a Josh Allen vibe. He can run, he can throw. I don't know. I kind of like Drake May. The Panthers beating the Saints. Bryce Young, how about it? Do they go back to Bryce Young permanently after this? Probably. The Saints are bad. They've lost 7 in a row. First time in a long time that has happened for them. Panthers winning on a game-winning drive. Impressively enough, a game-winning touchdown drive. The Saints led 22-16. And the Panthers came in and won 23-22. Game-winning touchdown for Bryce Young. As the 2-7 Panthers are about to square off with the 2-6 Giants in Germany. One of those teams is going to get to 3 wins incredibly. I'll put my money on the Giants to win that game with the way their defense has been playing and the way Daniel Jones hasn't actually been terrible. So I'll take the Giants to beat the Panthers. It'll be interesting to see, though. Well, is it going to be Dalton or is it going to be Young? I kind of hope Dalton gets a couple more starts. I think this is his last year probably as a starter. It'd be kind of cool if he got to start 3 or 4 more games. But I also understand if they don't, because Bryce Young looked a lot better, looked a lot smoother in that game against the Saints. So I'm kind of thinking this might be his team again. This might be his team again. He started 4 games, right? He started 4, and Dalton started 5. Is that right? Or has Dalton started 6? Let me check on that really quick. I think Bryce Young started the first 3. if I'm not mistaken. But no, Dalton. Yeah, no, Young played the first two, and then Dalton played 5, and then Young has started the past 2. So Young has started 4 games. Dalton started 5. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna guess that Young probably plays against the Giants, and they'll probably lose that game, and that might be that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But Dave Canales not making a decision. Meanwhile, the Saints, they're bad. They have to rebuild. They got to get. This is definitely Derek Carr's last year as a starter. They have to rebuild. They tried out Rattler. He's not good. Derek Carr is not good anymore either. This is a bad football team. I'm just gonna call it how I see it.